Welcome back. In this video about the power pod for the swappable series of Flite Test airplanes, and we're working on the FT Flyer. We're going to install the motor. So the power pod is basically built with the bamboo skewers in it and taped all up. Motor mount has been glued on, or the firewall's been glued on. So these are things you need. First off, I'm going to use the Emax 2805 1300 kV motor. I'm going to use a Sharpie marker to mark where to drill the holes for the 4 mounting screws I've got here. These are just standard servo mounting screws. These servo mounting screws comes in different sizes and shapes. These actually come from Dubro, and they have a 2mm hex head on it, which I prefer hex heads over everything else. But you'll find some that have hex heads, some with Phillips, some with a flat blade screwdriver. So you'll find all kinds of shapes there. So I've got 4 screws there. I've got a pin vise with a 1mm drill bit in it because these are 2mm screws. The 1mm will do a nice pilot hole. It's important to do a nice pilot hole for it. Okay, so here we go. So look at the motor. The motor comes with a prop saver. I'm going to save the prop saver because in some cases you want to use a prop that's better off with a prop saver. In some other cases you might use a 3mm prop adapter. This is a stick mount for mounting it on a stick kind of airplane, like a GWS slow flyer or something like that. And as you can see, there's the motor mount is already on it, and it's got the bullet connectors. And the first thing you got to do is take the motor mount off, and this should be a 1.5mm hex, and it is. So you unloosen the 2 set screws, 1 on each side, and the motor mount should come off. Voila. Okay, so there's the motor. The motor comes in both a 13 and a 1600 kV, and I've got one of each now mounted on 2 airplanes. I'm going to go back to the 1300 for this one, and we'll see how well it works. Actually, what I'm going to do is probably try it with a different prop. There's lots of props, and I'll talk about props later. So let me see something here. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to have a hole pattern where the 4 holes are vertical and horizontal. And so I'm just going to sort of center it in that hole. Take a Sharpie marker and mark it. Okay, so I got 4 good marks. Take my pin vise and drill 4 pilot holes. Now the firewall I use is the one I built, and I have noted that this particular firewall the plywood for this particular firewall is tough, which is good. The firewalls that come with the kits are still good, but they're not as hardened, I think, as this wood. Not hard. It's hard to say. Drilling the holes in the other ones, I recall that it wasn't as hard as this, but that's okay. It's also why I like to use a hex head screw for mounting these motors, because no matter how tough the wood is, the hex head screw isn't gonna, the hex head driver isn't gonna slip when you try to mount it, or it will slip if you use a Phillips screwdriver or a flat blade screwdriver. Okay, so that's in place. Now I try to put this in the same way every time. So I like to have the screw, the for the set screw here, the two set screws are at this kind of an angle, because down here, well, I mean, I got that backwards. Got it this way. Okay, so the two set screws are opposite where this hole is, where the bullet connectors are going to go through, so that that won't be in the way. They won't be in the way if you want to take the motor off. You have access to both of the set screws. So I just realized, normally I put this hole over here, so I did flip it over and put it on wrong, but it doesn't matter. But I do want the set screws for the motor mount to be easily accessible without the wires in the way. So they're here and here, and the wires will be there. Okay. So now let's start one screw. Taking a 2 millimeter hex. And one screw in. Now we gotta adjust the mount so the other 3 holes for the screws are there. Let's put the other thing I like about the hex head is it won't fall off when you go to put the next one in. Now I'm putting them in, you know, just kind of finger tight right now. I'm not tightening them up. You don't want to have them too tight anyways. Because of the tape and the wood and all, these are not going to vibrate out. So I'm not worried about vibration. All I'm worried about is that it's snug enough that it's not, the motor mount's not moving around. One thing I like about these Dubro servo mounting screws is that they have a built-in washer on them. So the built-in washer can't come off too, so it's always on there. And now the screws inside the firewall are sharp, so I'm going to put my fingers on the outside here while I screw in this last one. Okay, that one's tight. That one's tight. Just slightly more than finger tight. that's all you need. Okay, so that's good in place. Now we'll go ahead and put the bullet connectors through the hole. Sometimes you have to put one in at a time. In this case I could put two in at a time and then put it in like that. And get the motor mounted. Make sure it's sitting down where it's supposed to. Grab the 1.5 hex wrench. Tighten that slightly. Tighten that slightly and then snug it up. Now I could use Loctite on these set screws, but I'm not going to. Generally, if you tighten them a little more than finger tight there, they're not going to slip or go anywhere. The other thing that's nice about these motors is that that set screw is sitting in a recess, and that recess has a collar, so if that actually came loose a little bit, you would notice the motor would be loose before you would lose the motor. So that's better. Okay, so we have a motor installed. I'm happy with that. Okay, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.